Hello and welcome back to the American Ultra Stock channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're so excited to be with you guys here today. You see on Braden's background, you see the day of the week. It's time for Stock Watch, where we review the players whose stocks went up or down the most, but not for the weekend. The season is all but done. We know that some leagues still have some matches to play, but the main ones are done. So we're doing this time a special Stock Watch, where we review the players that throughout the entirety of the season, in our opinions, brought their stocks up the most, and the ones that unfortunately brought it down. Straight to the point, Braden, the one player that you want to pinpoint as one of the first ones that brought it up and impressed you throughout the year, who is it?
Yeah, and just quickly, our final stock watch of the season, clearly a new series that we invented. So in the comments, guys, let us know, what do you think of this series throughout the year? Any tips for us to change the format? We've experimented with a couple different things to see what works and what doesn't. So let us know. Do you enjoy this series? Do you like the format that we have right now? We're going to do 3 up and 3 down like we did for most of the season. But if you want us to go to something else, please let us know. We're always happy to hear constructive criticism from you guys and adjust our content to what you guys want. But to start things off here, for my first stock up for the season, it's going to have to be Captain America, Christian Pulisic. What a turnaround he had last season at Chelsea. It was a complete disaster. I think we're all aware of that, not only for him, but for the club in general. Chelsea were in a very low point last season, finishing 12th, I think, or something like that. And this year he gets the move to AC Milan, a fresh start in a new country. And usually players take some time to adjust. We've seen that with a lot of Americans this year. Haji Wright, I think in particular, took a little bit of time to adjust. Malik Tillman took a bit of time to adjust to their new circumstances, but Pulisic got off to a flying start immediately and never looked back. I think 24 goal contributions. There's still one more game in the season, so it could go up, but most of the European leagues are done now, or the relevant ones, that is. So a great season for Christian Pulisic. It surpassed all expectations. There's been a lot of concerns as to how consistent he can be at club level. We know he's always shows up for the national team, but realistically, there's only a couple of national team games a year. So to maintain this kind of form over an entire club season, 40, 50 games, is very impressive. And the other thing to note that is that he didn't get any injuries, really. I think there was like maybe one spell that he ended up missing a national team camp because of like a 1 to 2 week injury, but he ended up playing almost every game for Milan this season, which is something he hasn't really done in a while now. So I think that's also a huge shock up for him from a fitness perspective, and now he's fully fit, in perfect form for Copa America, so he's going to be ready to lead us into the summer.
Absolutely. So nice that we can say that, and without any doubt either. So happy for CP. Now moving on to a player right here. I called CP like Greg, shame on me. But anyways, moving on to my first player right here that I think really brought his stock up. Had a good season last year. It's Malik Tillman. He had a very eventful year. I mean, the guy did everything. He overslept for a match. He allegedly has a relationship with the club secretary. Insane right there. And I'm pretty sure he was pretty near an alcoholic coma after the celebrations too for PSV. But if the guy wants to celebrate, the season is done. And he had a huge part to play on PSV's season. So happy for him, because last year I thought it was a good season, but Rangers doesn't really count. Obviously, a good step up. It was his first pro season, but now moving on to the Eredivisie, a considerably better league, playing in the Champions League as well, getting to try his trade there as well. And 9 goals, 10 assists for Tillman, who I think at the beginning of the year we had as maybe a guy that could be tried for the A team. He's Olympic eligible as well, but I think that he kind of overstepped that step already. He has already cemented himself as an option for the USMNT. Hasn't had a marquee match for us so far. Still needs to adjust to the national level, but he is an option definitely. And I think it's nice that we have someone to go to if something happens to Gio. He's also a very direct player and doesn't seem to falter in any big occasions. I think that Malik always tries. Does need to polish his finishing a little bit, but hey, what a season he's had. I think that the fact that they signed him as well, thought it was worth the investment, also goes to show that he did enough throughout the year. And I'm so happy for Malik. Really, I think that in Copa America, I don't know how big of a role he's going to have, but I'm happy with him being one of the options off the bench. So massive season for him. Now the first one to get a stock down, Braden.
Yeah, and on Malik, I think it's notable to point out that around this time last year for the Nations League, he wasn't included in the roster for those games against Mexico and Canada, which I think just shows a complete step up from this season. Now he's not one of the first names on the team sheet because we know he in his position he's still probably behind Gio Reyna, and as a winger he could be a utility option, but he's effectively a lock in the squad, and to go from not even being selected at all to effectively a lock, I think shows a huge progress this year. But for the opposite of that, I'm going to go for Tyler Adams for my first stock down. And a lot of it isn't his fault. Granted, you get unlucky with injuries. There's some of that can't be avoided. What can be avoided back too quickly. And we saw that he tried to return in the Carabao Cup for Bournemouth, and it just went all wrong. He came on against Stoke City in a game that they were already up 2-0. There's no reason to be coming onto that game against the inferior opposition. Ends up re-injuring himself, doesn't play again until March. And then as soon as he comes back for March, rushes himself back into USMNT camp. And then for the rest of the season, he did actually have one full 90 after that, where he did end up winning man of the match. So we know the quality is still there, but then has just been struggling with injuries on and off for the rest of the season, hasn't been able to establish himself as a locked-in starter for Bournemouth just because he hasn't been able to see the pitch. So I think it has to be a stock down for him. We're at the point where it's uncertain whether he'll even be healthy for the Copa America because he was on the bench for Bournemouth last weekend, but then this weekend he wasn't in the squad at all. So really, we don't know what's going on with them. Hopefully there will be a club statement coming out soon or something from Tyler to reassure us. But there is a very real possibility as of now that he doesn't end up even making the squad just due to injury. And even if he does, it's probably going to be in a limited role. And we've seen the progression of some of our other defensive midfielders this season. So I think we're at the point where Adams is no longer a starting lock in which he was back in the World Cup. He was our captain, our undisputed leader. And now he's less and less of that.
Absolutely. Just want to re-emphasize that the pick, like Braden said, is mostly due to the off-the-field stuff. We know that on the pitch, he was immense for us against Mexico as well. But yeah, I think that the emergence of other players, like you said, does play a role. And I wish that would be the case with the player that I'm going to mention. It's going to be Matt Turner, the first one to get a stock down for me. I think I was really excited for him moving on, and props to him for trying his luck outside of Arsenal, because going to Forest on paper sounded like a really good option. He was going to go there and be a starter, or so we thought, and he had a good match against Chelsea. I will say that's his only good match the entire season, in my opinion. That was the only match where I say, okay, he did more than the bare minimum defending, easy shots. He did well claiming crosses. Really good match overall. That was early on in the season. I think it was match day 3. And then the rest of the season happened. We saw some horrible errors. Unlike the little thumb right there, was thumbs down. I thought it was a bad season for him. And it got to the point where he got benched. And another goalkeeper got brought in because, no one seemed to do well there. Sells does bad at Forest as well. And they battled throughout the year at the lower half of the table. And Matt Turner, when called upon action, I don't think that he did anything to justify being the starter. And I think it's really sad because at this point last year, we all thought he's a lock for number 1. Maybe he still is. And during Gold Cup, he did really well as well. But no one came up really to step up for that position. I think if it was the case, kind of like what happened with Tyler, where Johnny and some other players emerged, he would definitely be up for grabs. And even the interview with Tim Howard saying that we had things sorted out for quite a while and now it doesn't seem like it. And he said the mentality with Matt he likes, but the other aspects of the game, there is room for improvement. It goes to show, I think that his stock has gone down throughout the season. It's sad to see, and I hope someone steps up soon. So moving on to a better note, Braden, who is it?
I think we need to remember that going back to the World Cup, there was still a debate. It wasn't as much of a debate, but there was still a debate between who's going to be the starter, Matt Turner or Zach Steffen. And then Zach Steffen is completely left off the roster, give the reins fully to Turner. And what that did is put a complete lack of pressure on him. He did have a good World Cup. I'm not taking anything away from him, but he's had a complete lack of pressure for the national team ever since then. He's been the locked-in starter for all the competitions, even the Gold Cup. He was the only guy from the A team to come in and be like, yeah, I want to step up for this tournament, which props to him as well. I thought he was a tremendous leader at the back in that tournament. But at the end of the day, he needs pressure. We need someone else to step up. When he finally got pressured at club level, he faltered and ended up losing his spot. So maybe the same thing will happen with the national team once one of the young guys, Gaga Slonina, Chris Brady, Diego Cochin, someone else steps up and really gives him a run for his money at this is the number one. But moving on now to my second stock up, it's going to be another player similar to Pulisic, who was coming off a horrendous season in the Premier League, and his stock was at an all-time low. It has to be Weston McKennie. We've spoken about it so many times on the channel now this season, coming off the horrible loan at Leeds, where he looked out of shape, unmotivated, was probably the most hated player in the Prem overall, just because Leeds have a huge fan base, and I think he was by far their most hated player. Whether that was justified or not, that's a different debate. But he came back to Juventus, didn't even have a locker in the offseason, was supposed to be sold, but he stayed, fought for his place. I think I've said this so many times now, I'm getting redundant, but won back his spot not only in the team, but in the starting 11, and he's been so good this season. Double-digit assists, leading Juventus on their way to a Coppa Italia championship, and making their way back into the Champions League as well, looking to finish in the top 5. I think it's for certain they'll finish in the top 5. Maybe they'll drop to 5th. Maybe they'll finish as high as 3rd. We'll see this coming weekend. But whatever, it's still a great season for Juventus, coming back from that points deduction year last year where they ended up finishing 7th and missed out on Europe entirely. It's a bounce back for not only Weston McKennie, but the club as a whole. And it's coming at the perfect time. Like I said with Pulisic, having these players right in form, ready for Copa America, it is going to be so huge.
Absolutely. So nice to see him get a trophy. Honestly, that's so nice. Moving on to the next player on my stock up list. He didn't get a trophy, but I think that he had a better season than anyone thought. Haji Wright. I mean, the guy started the season going to Coventry. Like you said, you previously mentioned that he took some time to get settled. The first couple of goals were just, well, not judging how you score a goal, but they were just tap-ins. Still struggling with the pace of the game, the transitions, how much Ford has to run there. And he found himself in the wings and did really well there. I think Coventry, I tipped him to do really well this year. They didn't quite get promoted, but a really nice run in the FA Cup, and Haji Wright was immense. And I have to mention his feat where he did save Greg Berhalter. He came out on at the Nations League and clutched it up. 2 goals, played really well. And I think that I like this pick, and I'm going to mention him between my 3 top ones because as a winger, I think he had something that we desperately needed. I think our wing depth was kind of short, a lot shorter than most of us really realized. And the emergence of Haji Wright playing at a good level, a level where you could say maybe he should get a move during the summer. He did so well at Coventry. Some good goals as well against Wolves, particularly Man United, stepping up at the big stage. I think that having him as an option is something that we really have to be happy about, and it's out of nowhere because at this point last season, if anyone said, hey, next year in Copa America, Haji Wright's going to be a lock-in for the roster, most people would have laughed and made memes about it. But hey, props to Haji. 19 goals, 7 assists. What a season for him. Honestly, nothing but congratulations to Haji.
So for my second stock down now, I'm going to go for, after Matt Turner, I think probably the easiest stock down you can make. And they play for the same team. It's going to be Gio Reyna. Kind of similar to a McKennie to Leeds situation. He went on loan, and it was a horrible decision. Going to the Premier League to try to fulfill that childhood dream of playing in the Prem. We know his father, Claudio, not only had a bunch of influence, but also was a Premier League player as well when he was playing for Man City. So I'm sure following in his father's footsteps was definitely in his mind, and the influence as well. But I think we can all see it's gone so horribly wrong for Gio Reyna. Only 230 minutes played in the Premier League this season, was an unused substitute for the last 2 match days, which I think just sums up his season. Against the bottom 2 teams in the league, not even being able to get on the pitch. It's just really sad, to be honest. And I don't know what happened behind the scenes. I don't know if there was something going on in training where he wasn't playing up to his best or was putting in lack of effort. Maybe it's just Nuno didn't like him as much as he let on in January. He didn't fit the system. That also doesn't help that Forest's best player plays in the exact same position as him. But it's nothing really down to Reyna. I thought whenever he was on the pitch for Forest, he looked pretty solid, even got an assist immediately after coming on in one of the matches. But I think it's been a lost season for Reyna. I think I've said it in several other videos recently. But at this point in your career, as a 21-year-old who's been on the scene for so long, I think we really forget how young he still is. He could be at the Olympics this summer. If he was a regular 21-year-old, he could be at the Olympics. but he's such a talented player that he's one of the locked-in starters for the national team and one of the key players. He has to be held to a higher standard, whether it's his fault, the agent's fault, the club's fault, the manager's fault, whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is that he needs to be getting regular game time. Hopefully he can achieve that next season. But I mean, we saw it last year at Dortmund. Even when he was still coming off the bench, not getting as many minutes as he would have liked, he was still effective. 11 goal contributions last season, including 2 in the Champions League. This year, only 1. So it's a huge step down, a huge regression in terms of the club form. Luckily, he's still been good for the national team so far. We just have to hope that continues this summer.
Absolutely. And talking about bad moves, I'm going to have to mention Miles Robinson. I know that in Greg's mind, his stock's likely the same. But I'm going to mention also how his performance was at the end of last season. I thought that he didn't play well at all. Particularly some matches like Inter Miami looked ridiculously bad. Not the type of center back I want representing my country at any moment. And then, well, he came on. He had an okay Nations League camp, but just moving to Cincinnati, the reasoning behind that move as well, when he said that was the financial route, that was the appeal, the financial gain that he could get at MLS. Well, obviously that won't compare to what anyone was willing to pay for him abroad, but he didn't back himself to earn something bigger there. He didn't back himself to have longevity in Europe, and I think that's really sad. He could have gone to PSV, even if it was an adjustment year. I would have a lot more respect than just staying in MLS. Now FC Cincinnati is just, I think the door for Europe has been shut, and I hope that the door for the national team has been shut as well. I know it's not our best of positions, but I don't really trust Miles. I don't think that he's the center back he once was, and I still see some errors that I really don't feel like this is the guy to lead us from the back. And even guys like CCV, even though it's a low level as well, I think it's still ahead of him. And I think that Miles with this move has really cemented himself as a guy that's going to be involved in Gold Cups as a locked-in only and not for the bigger competitions. So sad move right there. I thought it was one of my favorite center backs at one point, but just the mentality is something I have to pinpoint. Huge stock down. Moving on to a better note, Braden, your third and final pick for the Stocks Up.
And for my third pick, I think I'm just going to preface something real quick that's important. Neither of us, with this third pick, I'm going to go for Serginho Dest. And not to spoil your pick, but neither of us selected Jedi Robinson here. This isn't a reflection on the season he's had. It's just who has improved their stock the most. We will have next Saturday a full stream regarding every single player's season, reviewing it in tier list style and strictly their season. But for this, it's the stock watch. And Jedi's season, he's been excellent, but his stock hasn't really changed. He's still the locked-in starter at left back. It's the same thing. And at club level as well, he was a very respected left back at Fulham last season, even more so this year. But it's a lot bigger change when it comes to Serginho Dest, who over the past couple of years at Barcelona, AC Milan has been an afterthought at both clubs. He made kind of similar to McKennie, actually. He made a horrible loan move last year where it didn't work out at all, ended up getting taken off the AC Milan Champions League squad for the knockout rounds, which is unheard of, especially considering how big the squads is. And to be a lone player taking off, it just shows the real lack of confidence the club had. He was a bench player, wasn't playing any minutes towards the end of the year, goes to PSV, and not only does he start, he is probably the best fullback in the league, maybe even the best defender in the league. Arguments for the best player in the league, makes the team of the season. Unfortunately, he does have that long-term injury now that has his near future in doubt. We don't know whether PSV will keep him or whether he'll stay at Barca. Who knows? His contract will be coming to an end fairly soon, I think after the end of this next season. So it'll be interesting to track his future. But for this past season, it's a huge turnaround. And I think we saw he was kind of a liability in the Netherlands game. I think he got caught too high up the pitch too many times, and it led to effective counterattacks. It's nice to see maybe he's not at the defensive level that we'd want him to be, not at a world-class level or anything close to that, but I think he is slowly improving step by step, being able to play so many Champions League games, qualifying for the knockout stages as well, playing a crucial role against now finalists Borussia Dortmund. And PSV, I think it's fair to say, we're probably the better side across those two ties. It very easily could have gone their way, and we're living in a completely different world now where PSV, who knows, maybe they make a run. But getting to play in these crucial games, I think it's given him valuable experiences heading into this summer, where he'll probably play against some of the best national teams in the world, at the very least in South America. So I think it's been a very successful season for Dest. I just said he'll be playing this summer. That's completely on me. Unfortunately, he won't be playing this summer. But going into the World Cup in 2026, if he can recapture this form when he comes back from injury, I think we're going to be at a very good spot at right back.
Yeah, nice that you picked Des, because otherwise I would have to pick him. He's the best right back in the world. Moving on to my final pick right here, it's going to be Johnny Cardozo. Johnny, honestly, last season, if we recap the Brasileirão in the regular season of how Brasileirão works, the state championships, I thought Johnny had a very poor start of 2023. Then the manager changes. Coudet comes in at Internacional, and they have a really good run in the Libertadores. He does really well there. Gets a move to Real Betis, and then does really well there as well, acclimating seamlessly, really taking no time into adjusting to the European game, doing so well. It goes to show, I saw an interview with where Coudet said that he was really confident and he advised Johnny to go because he was the coach at Celta de Vigo last season, and he thought that Johnny had all the tools to adjust to the European game. Told him that it was the best move if there was a La Liga club, and Johnny took the gamble. Really, maybe it was a bit early, some people were saying, but what a turnaround he has had compared to where his season was at this point last year. So I have to eat some humble pie right here because I never tipped Johnny to adjust so quickly to the European game. So happy that he's doing so well there. I'm a little bit upset with how Greg has mismanaged any of his minutes. Really, he should have started. I think that was the camp for him to start the Nations League, but he did raise his stock. He is now a solidified option for the 18, and also a guy that could challenge Tyler Adams, especially considering his injuries, to play in Copa America this year. So happy for Johnny, 18 games, 2 assists, 1 goal, really nice for him. So happy for him, and I hope that he follows it through next season as well. Moving on to the last one that got to stock down, Braden.
Loving the Portuguese pronunciation of Real Betis there. But moving on to my last stock down, and this is an interesting one because when we did our mid-season stock watch, there's basically the same video, but in mid-season at the end of December, this player was actually one of your stock ups. I think it just goes to show how far he's not necessarily fallen off, but just had a lack of opportunities in the second half of the season. It's going to be Ricardo Pepi. When we recorded that video back in the mid-season, he was coming off the highest high of the year by far, scoring that game winner against Sevilla to push PSV into the knockout stages. But since then, it's been a real lack of opportunities for Ricardo Pepi in the Eredivisie and in the Champions League. He just hasn't had the game time. And we've seen it all season. Whenever he does get the minutes, he produces. He has 7 goals, 2 assists in the Eredivisie, 2 goals and an assist in the Champions League, which is very impressive as a very limited substitute role. He only comes on for 15, 20 minutes maximum at the end of the game because Luke de Jong is a workhorse and just plays every single minute. No disrespect to Luke de Jong, incredible season for him, but it's not the season Pepe would have been looking to have minutes wise, and him and his agent even came out and said it that they were not happy with the lack of minutes this year, and if it continued, they would have to be forced to explore different opportunities. And I think it shows a real ambition from Pepe, which is nice to see that he's not content with just sitting around at this big club, winning the title of the Eredivisie, which is nice, but if you're not playing, it doesn't really mean as much as like it would for Malik Tillman or Serginho Dest, who are crucial parts of that team starting week in, week out. But for Pepe, I think he is still the future of PSV. I think he's going to have a great career there. But for now, this season, I think it has to be an overall stock down, especially considering in the Nations League, I mean, he was the hero against Mexico, scored that 3rd goal. I think he was the undisputed number 2 at the striker position, maybe even challenging Balogun for number 1. There was a real argument to be made there. But now you look into this summer, and there's a very real possibility that he's not even on the Copa America roster in favor of the Olympics to get him that regular game time that he hasn't had all season. I don't think anyone would be really too mad about it if that were to happen. And if he is at Copa America, I think Josh Sargent has probably surpassed them, and maybe even Havishi Wright as well, if Greg wants to play him as a striker as opposed to a winger.
Yeah, that's an interesting shout. I think I would favor that. It goes to show how it really changed from mid-season. Sad to see. But talking about strikers, this is actually really funny. It's coincidental. We didn't plan this. We always make these genuine reactions. And, my pick's Balogun. I think that at this point last season, everyone was crazy on the hype train for Balogun. There was a huge hype that, well, we just got him. It was nice. He scored that goal against Canada. Summer comes along. He gets a nice move to Monaco. Didn't stay at Arsenal, but that's fine. Moving to Monaco, I thought, well, he's going to have to battle with Ben Yedder, but he's going to get regular game time, which he did fine. He got a lot of appearances this year. If you look at the stats, 32 matches, 8 goals, 5 assists. It doesn't look too bad. But then you consider when the goals came, the gap in between the goals, and also the quality of performances. I mean, one of those assists, it should count as a miss, really. It was a missed kick that came out to be a goal from Ben Yedder, but Balogun completely missed it. It was a big chance missed on the apps, but also an assist. If you contextualize and beat the eye test, watching Balogun this season, I think it's very underwhelming. I think it's time, at some point during mid-season, I think everybody updated their expectations with Balogun. And we went from well, this is going to be the best American striker ever to, okay, we have a good striker there. But hey, if Pepe really had the game time to produce more, I think he would have. And the number 9 position is still up for grabs. And I think that goes to show how we went from thinking this is the Lord and Savior. Some people were saying that Balogun, I remember polls being put up if he was going to be better than Clint Dempsey. And now we see the season that he had. So I think it's a huge stock down for Balogun based on the expectations. We have to update them and take it for what it is. He's a good player that's going to do well for us, but not the savior by any means. Now it's time where we would typically mention the players that are ones to watch, but the season's done. There's nothing else to watch, really. So we're going to give some love to the guys in the Olympic camps. I think a lot of them had good seasons, and we're going to also give a little bit of hate too. So one stock up, one stock down, Braden. Who are the 2 guys from the Olympic eligible guys that you think are worth a mention?
I'll start with the stock up, and it's going to be your guy, your savior at Venezia, Tanner Tessman. What a season he's had, the center defensive midfielder, getting his first USMNT call-up. Granted, he didn't have the best of performances, but I think that kind of generated some unnecessary hate from USMNT fans just due to that performance. I think playing in Serie B, there's not a lot of opportunity to watch him, and I think understandably so. It's a very difficult league to watch here in America, but I think due to that, there's been a little bit of a lack of recognition for how good Tessman has been this season. I think finally people are starting to catch on now towards the end of the year as the promotion playoff race comes down to the wire. As we release this today, the first leg will be playing against Palermo and Christopher Lund, the starting left back for them and the backup for the USMNT. But I think Tessman's going to be crucial if Venezia are to go up, and I think it's paramount for them if they do, because if not, they're going to be losing Tanner Tessman in the summer to a very good Serie A team as well as some of their other players. Tessman, great season. As a CDM, he's so versatile in what he does, not in terms of positioning. I don't think he can really survive as like an 8 or a 10, but just the things he does as a 6. Defensively, he's so solid. And on the ball as well. We saw it in the camp against France in particular. His long balls were so good. Set up the first goal to Griffin Yao in that game against France with a beautiful long ball. We see his limitless range of motion. Maybe it comes from being a kicker for American football. Maybe that's where he gets it from. And his scoring as well. 6 goals this season for a center defensive midfielder, I think is really, really unheard of, as well as 3 assists, like I mentioned, with the passing. Great season all around. There's really nothing you can fault besides Venezia's lack of getting it done towards the end of the year and ultimately falling to the playoffs. But if they do go up, there's really no downsides to Tessman's season. It's been incredible. He should be the captain at the Olympics, the player leading us to hopefully a medal of some sort, and we'll just be hoping to continue his excellent form into the summer. But now on the stock down, and it's going to be a player who has had potentially the most reps of any player in our player pool this season, has to be Gabriel Slonina. So many opportunities for him to make saves because his defense was horrible at Eupen in Belgium. So many opportunities for the other team. Every game he was making 7-8 saves, it seemed, while still conceding 4 goals. Absolutely crazy. But I think it just has to be a stock down purely because heading into the season, I think we all knew he's the undisputed number 1 for the Olympic age group and potentially even top 3 for the regular USMNT as well. But now I think there's some other players that have emerged. Chris Brady, Patrick Schulte are fighting him for a spot, and due to Oipen's lack of releases, I don't think this will be a problem for Chelsea once he goes back in the summer. But who knows? Maybe he's not released for the Olympics. Maybe he doesn't make the final cut because of the performances of Schulte and Brady. So I think it's going to stock down in that aspect. And at club, it's hard for a goalkeeper at such a young age as well, still just 20 years old. The fact that he's been facing so many shots, letting so many goals in, and getting relegated as well, it's never good for a young player's confidence, especially a goalkeeper. So hopefully he can bounce back wherever he goes next season. I've been saying it for a while now. Strasbourg is my preferred destination for him. We'll see if it actually happens, but hopefully he can have a better season next year in terms of at least letting goals in.
Yeah, and I will say this. I think this is a good pick. Not to hate on Zlanina, but that match against France, if he was in goal instead of Patrick Schulte, I think we would have lost. I would just say that. Now, my picks, well, first of all, thank you for mentioning Tesman, too. The guy, in my opinion, that has the highest ceiling out of any CDM we have. Incredible player, a vice captain for Venezia. Great season for him, and I think he will lead us to a medal. But my pick right here is a player that I think will really be helpful and crucial for us if we get a medal. It's going to be Griffin Yao. I mean, what a season. I've said this time and time again. When he got his first opportunity for Westerlo, they were second in the bottom of the league. It looked like they were going to be relegated. And he can be pinpointed as the catalyst for change in their season. I mean, hitting double digits on goal contributions, really good contributions as well. Good goals and assists against big clubs like Sint-Truiden, did well against Club Brugge as well, one of the biggest clubs in Belgium. I think Griffin Yao had a great season. Some of the goals he scored and how incisive, direct he is with the ball. I think that he is what Cade Cowell would be if he had technical skills, because Yao can cross, can finish against France. The guy is fearless. He goes up against anyone, has a great mentality. I see on his interviews that he wants more. He doesn't want to be only in the Olympic eligible group. So props to Yao. I think it's a huge stock up because in one cap, he managed to solidify himself as an option for the Olympics. He had one shot and, well, he was impressive in that camp. 5 goal contributions. Now moving on to a player that I already mentioned. The stock down is going to be Cade Cowell. Had that move where he was this big shot of Liga MX, dyeing his hair blonde and everything. I like the fact that he was embracing his new surroundings, but now you look at his season, 10 goals. Now it's been 10 games without any goal contributions. The last goal contribution was a gazillion years ago. And I think that 2 matches ago against America, I don't know how in less than half an hour he managed to look like the worst player on the pitch. And I think that him and Chicharito were ridiculously bad during that match. I think I like how for some things, I said it in the past, I like how he always goes forward, doesn't really pass back, is a very direct winger, tries to beat everyone. The physical attributes are all there, but the polishing on the final third has to be done. And ultimately, I think that this Chivas move is really sideways because I don't think he'll have the opportunity to expand and refine his skills. So a stock down from him, especially because now he's not in the public eye as much and he doesn't have that many people backing him. So that was it. It's a bit of a longer one, but again, we have to do justice to all these guys that play their hearts out during the season. Some of them had great ones, some not so much. Let's hope that we can continue doing this for next season. You guys let us know in the comments below. Like Braden said, give us the feedback on things to improve on or not, and if our stocks went up or not by any means. But thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and share with your friends. We'll see you next time.